I went to the ER for severe pain and found out I was sterilized without my consent. 35 years ago, I'm still trying to process this, so please bear with me. I'm a woman in my early 50s. I never had children, not because I didn't want them, I did, desperately, but life just never worked out that way. Last week, I had a medical emergency that turned my entire life upside down. I went to the ER with severe abdominal pain, fever, and vomiting. The doctors ran tests and came back saying it looked like acute appendicitis and that I'd need surgery quickly. I was confused but calm until I said, "That can't be right. I had my appendix removed when I was 15. They paused. I lifted my hospital gown and showed them the scar on my lower abdomen. I've had it my entire adult life. I've always believed that scar explained everything. The doctor frowned and said, "That scar doesn't look like a typical appendectomy incision from that era." That's when everything started to unravel. They ordered old records, imaging, and surgical notes from decades ago. It took time. Hours passed. I could feel something was wrong, just by the way staff stopped making eye contact. Finally, a senior doctor came in and sat down. He told me, very carefully, that according to the records, my appendix had never been removed. What had been done instead was a tubal ligation, at 15 years old. Without my knowledge, without my consent, I felt like the air left my body. I asked him to repeat it, then I asked again, then I asked if there was some mistake. There wasn't. The surgery I was told was necessary when I was a teenager, the one my parents signed off on, was actually a procedure that permanently prevented me from ever having children. I don't even remember being given an explanation back then. I remember being scared, groggy, trusting adults and doctors because that's what kids are supposed to do. I spent decades blaming myself, thinking there was something wrong with my body, that I unintentionally did something to it to cause infertility. And all along, the choice had been taken from me. I cried in that hospital bed like I never have before. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent, shaking sobs. Grieving not just the truth, but the life I was never allowed to have. The children who never existed. The answers I should have been given long ago. The doctors removed my appendix that night, the one that was apparently still very much there. Physically, I'm healing. Emotionally, I don't know where to put this. I don't know how something like this was allowed to happen. I don't know who knew and who didn't. I don't know how to confront the people who were supposed to protect me when I was a child. What I do know is this: my entire story has changed. The infertility I was told to accept wasn't fate. It wasn't my body failing me. It was a secret buried under a scar and a lie. I keep touching that scar now, seeing it differently. It was never what I thought it was. I went to the ER for stomach pain. I left knowing my future had been stolen before I was old enough to understand what that even meant. I don't know what comes next. But I know I finally know the truth. Update. I confronted my parents. And the truth was worse than I imagined. I didn't think anything could hurt more than finding out I was sterilized without my consent. I was wrong. After I was discharged from the hospital, I went to my parents' house. I didn't call ahead. I didn't want them rehearsing answers. I needed the truth, not a polished version of it. At first, they denied everything. My mother looked genuinely offended and said the doctors must be mistaken. My father insisted I was confused from the medication and told me not to jump to conclusions. They repeated the story I'd been told my entire life, that I had my appendix removed and nothing more. I didn't back down. I told them I had the medical records. I told them the dates, the procedure codes, the surgeon's notes. I told them the appendix was still inside me until last week. That's when the room went quiet. My mother started crying. My father stared at the floor. And then they finally told me the truth. They admitted they knew exactly what the surgery was. They said when I was 15, I was out of control. I had started pushing back against their rules, dressing differently, questioning things. Then they found out I was sleeping with my boyfriend. They lived in a small town. Everyone knew everyone. Reputation was everything. They told me they were terrified I'd get pregnant and ruin my life. But what they really meant, what eventually slipped out, was that they didn't want to be the subject of small-town gossip. They didn't want whispers at church. They didn't want judgment from neighbors. They didn't want shame. Child. Why I flinched every time someone said, "Maybe it just wasn't meant to be." My mother said, "We didn't think you'd want kids after everything." I nearly screamed. I told them they didn't just stop a pregnancy, they erased an entire life I wanted. They didn't protect me, they controlled me. They didn't save me from gossip, they sacrificed my future to avoid it. My father said, "We did what parents do. We made a hard choice." I told him parents don't get to permanently alter their child's body to preserve their own reputation. I left after that. I don't know what our relationship looks like going forward. I don't know if forgiveness is possible yet. I do know this. What they did wasn't love. It was fear disguised as morality. And the bitter irony? They were so afraid of gossip that they committed something far worse than any rumor could have ever done. I spent decades believing my body failed me. Now I know it was the people I trusted most who did. I'm sitting with that truth now, and it's heavy. Final update: they asked for reconciliation. I took them to court. Instead, I didn't expect to post again, but the truth kept unfolding, and this is where the story ends. After our confrontation, my parents reached out repeatedly, asking to heal as a family. My mother left tearful voicemails. My father sent a handwritten letter about forgiveness and moving on. What stood out wasn't what they said. It was what they didn't say. There was still no full ownership, no acknowledgement of the damage, just a desire to make the discomfort go away. I said no. Instead, I hired an attorney. At first, we weren't sure a case was possible after so many years, but once my lawyer obtained the hospital records, consent forms, and billing statements, the case didn't just exist, it exploded. During discovery, we uncovered something that made me physically ill. The surgeon who performed the procedure didn't just mislead me, he was paid to do it. Buried in old financial records was a consultation fee, paid directly by my parents to the surgeon, separate from hospital billing, right before the operation. Internal notes showed the procedure was planned as a tubal ligation from the start. And worst of all, there were handwritten annotations indicating the surgeon agreed to tell me the surgery was an appendectomy and to document it that way in my discharge explanation. He didn't make a mistake. He lied on purpose. For money. When I learned this, something inside me broke clean in half. I had trusted that man with my body. I had trusted every adult in that room. And they all chose secrecy over my autonomy. The lawsuit expanded. It now included medical malpractice, fraud, conspiracy, lack of informed consent, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The hospital distanced itself quickly once the evidence surfaced. The surgeon, now retired, was deposed and visibly shaken. In his deposition, under oath, he admitted he knew I believed the surgery was an appendectomy. He admitted he never corrected me. He admitted my parents asked him to handle the explanation. The trial itself was brutal. I testified about the years of infertility treatments, the silent grief, the birthdays where I imagined children who never existed. I told the jury how I blame my body, my faith, and myself, never suspecting the truth was hidden behind a lie paid for decades earlier. Medical experts testified that there was no medical necessity for sterilization at 15. Ethicists testified that even in that era, deception of a patient, especially a minor, was a gross violation. Then my parents took the stand. Under oath, they admitted they feared pregnancy and small-town gossip more than my future. They admitted they paid the surgeon to keep the truth from me. They admitted they believed lying was simpler. The courtroom was silent when my attorney asked, "Did you understand this would permanently prevent your daughter from ever having children?" My father said, "Yes." The jury didn't deliberate long. They ruled overwhelmingly in my favor. The judgment included damages for loss of reproductive autonomy, medical fraud, emotional suffering, decades of unnecessary infertility treatments, and punitive damages due to intentional deception. It was a substantial award, enough to secure my future, cover therapy, and finally feel financially safe. But the money wasn't the victory. The verdict was not complicated, not understandable, not justified by the times, wrong. Afterward, my parents tried to speak to me one last time. They said the lawsuit went too far, that I'd ruined reputations, that some things should stay private. I told them my life didn't belong to their secrets. I don't know if reconciliation will ever happen. Right now, I'm choosing distance, therapy, and truth. I'm choosing to live the rest of my life knowing that what was done to me has a name, and that name is injustice. I didn't get the children I dreamed of, but I got my voice back, and no one gets to take that from me again.